Well, after a crazy postseason, we have our Super Bowl matchup. The Kansas City Chiefs are set to take on the Philadelphia Eagles in Phoenix in about 10 days' time. It looks like a great game between two of the number one seeds in the NFL. On one side, we have the young Philadelphia Eagles looking for a second title in the last 6 years versus the Chiefs, who are back to the Super Bowl again under Patrick Mahomes. But assuming you've read the title, you know that that's not what this video is about. As we approach what looks to be an all-time classic Super Bowl matchup, I want to look at some of the great games of Super Bowls past, from Bradshaw to Brady, Norwood to Nick Foles, and everything in between. These are some of the greatest Super Bowl matchups of all time. We start off with one of the most devastating losses in Super Bowl history, and the beginning of the most painful era in Buffalo football. One of the most explosive offenses in the league, led by Jim Kelly, facing the scary Lawrence Taylor defense, coached by a certain Bill Belichick. Despite not converting a single third down in the entire game, the Bills brought the game down to 19-20 with one drive left to push for a win. With the help of Thurman Thomas adding onto his monster game, the Bills eventually converted a third down and progressed from their own 10-yard line to the New York 29. It was all set up for the final field goal. All Scott Norwood had to do was kick a field goal, and the Bills were world champions. In the very category of franchises that have come so agonizingly close to a Super Bowl only to never win it lies the Cincinnati Bengals. Despite 3 Super Bowl appearances, the Bengals have never gotten their hands on the coveted Lombardi Trophy, but one could argue they came closest to doing so in 1989. This game was one of the most fitting ends to a dynasty ever, and featured Joe Montana and Jerry Rice in one of the best ever Super Bowl performances. Think about this. Against Dick LeBeau's defense, Joe Montana accumulated 357 passing yards, 215 of which were thrown to Jerry Rice. Regardless of these kinds of stats, the Bengals juggernaut matched the San Francisco 49ers stride for stride and got out to a 16-13 lead late in the fourth quarter. But with 3 minutes left on the clock, Joe Montana organized perhaps the most memorable drive of his entire career. With the help of Roger Craig and eventual Super Bowl MVP Jerry Rice, Montana took the 49ers 92 yards down the field, capping off the drive with a touchdown pass to John Taylor. The Bengals were left heartbroken, and San Francisco ended their 80s dynasty in fitting style. Alright, enough of the teams that have lost out on maiden Lombardi trophies. Let's talk about a season winner missing out on the biggest prize of all. The 2017 New England Patriots up against the upstart Philadelphia Eagles, led by a backup quarterback in Nick Foles. What's weird is that the Eagles weren't even supposed to be here. After an injury to potential MVP candidate quarterback Carson Wentz, things were looking damp in Philly. However, Foles and company rallied their troops to make a run for the Super Bowl and actually secure the NFC title. Even so, Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles weren't given much of a chance to succeed in the ultimate face-off versus the Patriots, but boy did they prove them wrong. This game was something out of Madden. People might say that this game is so high up in the rankings for me because I'm an offensively oriented, immature child, and they would be absolutely right, but you just have to appreciate the point fest that this game was. 1,151 yards of offense broke the record for any NFL game ever, with Tom Brady throwing 505 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and still losing. Also, who could forget this play? All this coming together proved too much for the Patriots, and in one of the most improbable results that a Super Bowl has had to offer, Philadelphia prevailed 41-33 and gave its fans their first ever world championship. The fans, of course, responded in the classiest way that they could and trashed the streets of the city hall. I guess it's just a Philly thing. Now, we move closer and closer to the top spot. Super Bowl 51 was, in retrospect, one of the most improbable storylines of all time, and featured America's worst nightmare Tom Brady and the New England Patriots versus the explosive Atlanta Falcons. They say good things come to all those that wait, and it looked like the Falcons' half-a-century wait for the Lombardi was going to pay off as they got off to a quick 21-3 lead in the first half. This was later accentuated by another touchdown to make the score 28-3. Then, things started to get a little crazy. Touchdown, field goal, touchdown, touchdown, and just like that, the Patriots were back in it. For the first time in history, a Super Bowl was set to go to overtime. With the ball in Brady's hands, he didn't miss, orchestrating a game-winning drive capped off by a toss to James White and a touchdown for New England. The win was both breathtaking and heartbreaking. Not for me though, for me it was just breathtaking. This one hurt to put this high on the list, especially being a Patriots fan. The chance at having a 19-0 season slipping from our grasp while all we could do was sit and watch. Even if this game had a pretty low score, don't let that take away from the sheer entertainment it provided. The Giants set up a simple game plan to cope with the high-flying, record-setting 2007 Patriot offense, an efficient and relentless four-man rush. Tom Brady took hit after hit as Michael Strahan and company played a perfect game all night and did the unthinkable, holding the Pats to 14 points across 4 quarters of football. Then, with a chance to seal the game on the final drive, Eli Manning hit David Tyree on what would come to be one of the most famous, if not the most famous, Super Bowl plays of all time. And then Manning found Plaxico Burress for the game-winning touchdown pass. The 18-0 Patriots were denied the perfect season, and the young quarterback got his first ever Super Bowl. The sad part about all of this is that it wouldn't be the last time the Giants would upset the Patriots in a Super Bowl. But that's enough suffering for one day. Now who remembers this game? Super Bowl 43 was set to be an epic from the moment it kicked off. Steelers vs. Cardinals, Ben Roethlisberger vs. Kurt Warner in Tampa. Tons of epic plays were made in this back and forth game for NFL supremacy. Epic plays like the Justin Hartwin safety, James Harrison's 100-yard pick six, and Larry Fitzgerald's 64-yard touchdown reception brought the score down to 23-20 Arizona in a game that had been dominated primarily by the Steelers. And with 2:37 left on the game clock, it was time for Santonio Holmes. Roethlisberger found his favorite target on the night for 73 yards and 4 catches off one drive, the last of which would go down in NFL lore as one of the greatest end zone catches in Super Bowl history. With Santonio Holmes' Tampa toe tap, the Pittsburgh Steelers would get their 6th Super Bowl and the Cardinals would be left to a painstaking finish. Before we get into the top pick, let's go over some games that didn't make the actual list but are still worth mentioning. Not just because I don't want to get screwed in the comments, but also because they were great games overall. Mainly because I don't want to get screwed in the comments though. Matchups like the 35-31 thriller in Super Bowl XIII, the guarantee in Super Bowl III, the beginning of a dynasty with Super Bowl XXXVI, Elway and Terrell Davis putting their bodies on the line for the Broncos in Super Bowl XXXII, and of course, Super Bowl 53, in which the Patriots proved that defense wins championships. I'm not biased, you are. Alright, we've come all this way, so here's the grand finale. Super Bowl 49. One of the most evenly matched Super Bowls of all time between the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. The game was mostly played safe on offense, as Brady and the Patriots kept their passing underneath and didn't try to test Richard Sherman on the wider areas of the field. But eventually, the Seahawks hit back to find a touchdown before the half, and would ride that momentum through the third quarter, adding more points to the tally. And here's the point where people start to look at how Tom Brady's going to handle this deficit. But what these people forget is one simple yet often overlooked fact. He's Tom Brady. One of the reasons I named this as my number 1 Super Bowl is for the fact that it had the most compelling fourth quarter in history. Brady has a classic fourth quarter, possibly even the best of his career, passing 11 of 14 and adding 2 touchdowns to his record at the same time. With 26 seconds on the clock, the Seahawks are down 28-24. Russell Wilson lays up a pass for Kearse, and it's contested. The ball juggles in the air for what seems like an eternity, and when all is said and done, Kearse comes down with the catch. It was looking like yet another great catch was going to deprive Tom Brady of the trophy. But on 2nd and goal with only a few seconds remaining, something wild happened.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line!
That's right, they have a guy named Beast Mode in the backfield and they chose to throw the football, allowing for Malcolm Butler to arguably make the greatest play in Super Bowl history. This game was more than just a miracle game. It was a roller coaster ride of emotions that might have even denied the Seahawks of a potential dynasty. Even keeled until literally the last second, Super Bowl 49 will forever remain in my memory as the greatest Super Bowl of all time. The Super Bowl is arguably one of America's biggest sporting events, and a day not just for football, but also for showmanship. A day that has produced some of the greatest moments in NFL history, and a day that has created memories for all of us football fans, regardless of whether you like the Chargers or not. So this year, with the Super Bowl fast approaching on February 12th, let's hope the Chiefs and Eagles create some of the same memories for us, regardless of the winner. As a neutral fan this time around, I can only hope that we get a dose of Super Bowl action that is incredible enough to be worthy of the archives. Who knows? Maybe we'll be talking about Mahomes' or Hurts' performance on February 12th, 2023, 20 years down the line, the way I talked about Montana on January 22nd, 1989 today. Either way, one thing's for sure, Super Bowl 47 is set to be a spectacle, as are most Super Bowls. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.